Okay, Deanna, do you mind telling us a little bit about your educational background, how long you've been a counselor, and where you are working?
Sure. So, sorry, my printer's going off at the same time. Sorry. So, this is my 17th year as a counselor. Fifth or sixth year. I'm sorry, I should have counted ahead of time. As a high school counselor, I was a middle school counselor for 11 years, just next door to our feeder middle school. In retrospect now, I wonder why it took me so long to get to high school, because I like middle school, but I love high school. So definitely like this age group much better. And I like the counselor responsibilities much better. It's just a better fit for me. Everyone's personality is a little bit different. Before that, I taught English 1 and 2 at a very tiny high school in East Texas. Took a couple years off to be with my kiddos, and then got my master's degree. Hello. Got my master's degree at the same time. I actually went back for my master's degree and started in educational leadership because I thought I wanted to be an assistant principal. And by the time I realized that that was the wrong fit for me, I was too close. So I just finished and I graduated, and then I immediately went back and did my counseling. And I knew from the beginning, this was, it was the right fit. So I have a 2 master's degree and a lot of debt.
Yeah, same. This will be my second master's degree, and just more and more debt.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Yep. I hear you. It's my 3rd master's degree.
Oh, nice.
I'll never pay it off.
Yeah, forever in debt. But I feel like that's par for the course nowadays.
Okay, we kind of divided up these questions, and they all relate to the implementation cycle. So we've got organizing, planning, designing, implementation, and evaluating. Okay. So I'm gonna let my classmates start, because they're the ones who wrote the first set of questions.
Sure. I'll do organizing, and Gerardo, he'll do the planning questions. Okay. How did you select members for Campus Advisory Committee, or the CAC, while planning an endeavor to improve or implement the Texas model for comprehensive school counseling programs in your school?
So the question is, how did I recruit members?
Yes.
Okay. I took anyone who would volunteer, anyone to do that. Now that we've done it for a few years, I don't have problems getting people. The first year, to get that buy-in, I had to do a lot of advertising. I did that with our community insider that goes out every Friday. And then I sent out information directly to teachers on our campus. And then at our weekly counselor meetings, with the other counselors, I asked them for feedback on students, that they had already interacted with to be members. So we were looking for a variety of students with a variety of backgrounds. I didn't just want, top performers. I wanted, everyone from every aspect to be a part of it. So we have a very diverse group, and now that they see value in it, I don't have problems retaining people and recruiting new ones.
Okay, that leads into my second question. Did these CAC members continue to serve on the council each year, or did you actively seek new members every year?
I do both. So the ones like the students who graduate, obviously, I remove, but I ask parents the same parents every year to do that, because once they gain that experience, they're really great members. And then I put it out every year to new parents and to our new staff, and every year get good feedback. And so part of our CAC stays the same because we're able to retain people, and then I always add in new ones. I try to keep the students the same as much as possible and recruit new ones at the same time. So I kind of keep track of the grade levels. So And then, male, female, and then ethnicity. So I can make sure that I'm reaching everyone as much as possible. It's not perfect, but so when the seniors graduate, I know exactly what I'm looking for in the incoming freshman class. So.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia? We're moving to the planning.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Sorry about that. Let me scroll up real quick. What was your vision or mission of the school counseling program that you were overseeing at the time? And how were you able to make it align with the overreaching mission statements of the campus?
So the first part of the question, at what time? What was my vision at what time? Like before we received the CREST award, or before we started that implementation, or?
On your road to receiving the CREST award.
Okay. Well, this is a big answer. So
yeah, I know.
There's a lot that goes into this. The person that I took over from is a very good counselor, but had never been a teacher before. So I think that's probably one of the best hallmarks of or characteristics of a counselor, is someone who's been in the classroom. All the counselors that I've worked with before that have never been in the classroom, there's usually something that we kind of have to work through to kind of get them where they need to be. I say that because I had a lot of work to do coming in. She ran a great program, but she was not aware that the Texas model existed. She did not know anything about CREST. And so I had a lot of work. I think the first thing that we had to do was undo some of the attitudes towards the counseling office, starting with administration. This is important because I can't go to administration and say, hey, I want to do this big thing, if administration has a bad relationship with counseling. The number one thing that I learned from all this is to be thankful that I'm working with a principal who understands what counselors do and can support our mission. We're at the point now where he just basically leaves me alone to do what I need to do because he trusts me. And so, but I had to work to build that. If I hadn't have had that relationship, CREST would have never worked. It would have never worked. And then I also had to work to build that trust with other counselors too, because counselors from the old, I'm gonna say regime, I don't mean it in a negative way, but the old group were still here. And so I had to undo a lot of that old thinking about guidance counselors versus school counselors. It may not seem important, but it really is, because if you don't have buy-in from admin, you don't have buy-in from the people who are actually implementing this, then none of this will ever work. So my vision was to create a comprehensive program. But to get there, number one thing was that buy-in from everyone involved. I needed staff to like us again. I needed them to see us as allies. And so it took a good year to undo a lot of the problems. And then we started to implement the whole process. Okay, then what was the second part of your question?
How you were able to align, or how did you align that with like the overreaching mission statements? That was a really insightful answer. You kind of covered a couple of my other questions.
Okay. Okay.
No, yeah, I know that was a lot.
Yeah.
But no, that was very insightful.
Okay, so my high school is the first campus in our district to win the CREST award.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't have a lot to work with. And my district supervisor still does not really understand. They work a lot with the ASCA model, and there's nothing wrong with that. The two definitely overlap, but he was not very supportive. So, but in looking at like, you know, their mission statement versus my mission statement versus the school's mission statement, there were a lot of missing pieces out there. So I didn't really have much to emulate. I didn't have much to springboard off of, right? So the district has a mission statement for the counseling department, but it's like a generic statement. You could probably read it anywhere. So I really didn't pay much attention to it because it was really meaningless, I guess. And that sounds really bad, but it didn't mean anything. It hadn't been revisited in years. And so I knew that if it's not important to them, then I shouldn't make it important to me either. Yeah. Our campus has a motto, but not a clear mission statement. So we really started with ground zero. I didn't go off of any other mission statement to try to, correlate with that or anything. We started with our own, and we still have our own. This district still doesn't have one that we kind of coordinate with, and the campus doesn't have one. So we're a little bit different in that way, I think. When I was going through the process and looking at other schools, trying to figure out what they do, most schools had something, but we didn't. So it was really
cool. That's cool that you were able to start kind of, because one of my questions was if you were implementing or an existing counseling program or started from scratch. And I feel like you answered that question in that statement. And it was cool that you were able to kind of make your own, kind of weave your stuff together. So my other question was, what pillars did you include in your all-inclusive school counseling program?
What do you mean by pillars?
Like what, sorry, I had it written down right here. I'm so sorry. I closed my.
Oh, it's okay. I just don't want to answer wrong.
Like responsibility domains.
But we included everything. Like I said, I didn't have a lot to go off of, and so.
You're just basically starting from scratch.
Yeah. And so I was so afraid of doing something wrong that I tried to make sure that stuff was included in everything because I couldn't copy off of anyone. I didn't know. I mean, you can email the people who are over CREST and talk to them about it, but they give very generic answers. Yeah. And so finding like a mentor out there, it was hard. Yeah,
I'm sure every campus has different situations that apply and specific, things that you want to strive for. One of my final questions is, how did you and your advisory council choose appropriate school counseling program content for your campus?
School counseling content?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you mean like guidance or?
Yes, yeah.
Well, the district has a program that we use only for, we implement depression awareness lessons. So I had that. I knew that. We do that every year. So I knew if I didn't have a whole guidance program, I at least had that. I know a lot of districts purchase a whole, like a set program. Yeah. We didn't have anything. And so I knew this would be one of our weakest points because I can't implement a whole program just on my campus and not at all the other high schools. You know what I mean? And
it needs to be like a district-wide effort.
Right. If they're not willing to do that, then I have to come up with something. I can't write a bunch of lessons. And I mean, I'm not a teacher anymore in that way. Like I can't do that. So we knew we had those lessons, but also we looked a lot at the end of the year needs assessment, what students were telling us. And then we tried to base some lessons off of that. So one thing that students tell us every year, the data is the same, is that they're stressed out. Yeah. And so we implemented lessons on how to deal with stress. So for us, we just listened to our students basically and designed stuff around our needs. But we didn't have a district-wide And I don't know how I would even feel about that at this point, now that we've gone through our process so much.
Mhm.
If the district came in and said, here's what we want you to do, I don't know how I'd feel about it now.
Yeah, our
Because-
district has implemented an SEL
Mhm.
program that they want us to do. And I personally, I mean, obviously that's something that's going to be greatly beneficial to the students, but I feel the way that we implement it isn't as efficient as it should be.
Mhm.
So I kind of, that resonates with me, what you're saying.
Yeah. And we also do guidance. It's harder at the high school level. And then we don't also have a common time for kids. We don't have like a homeroom where we can always implement lessons.
Yeah.
One thing, I went to my very first year as a counselor, as a middle school counselor, I went to a conference. I don't even remember where it was now or what it was, but you know how they say, if you can just take one thing away from the conference, I have never forgotten this one thing. Someone said, a presenter, it was a high school person, said, at the high school level, you need to stop thinking that when you deliver guidance, that every student has to get it. We would love that, but it's just not possible. And so I feel like she kind of gave me permission to be flexible with that. And so what we do for a lot of the stress management stuff is we ask teachers if they want us to participate in their class. We invite students during a study hall time. It's like 20 minutes that we have during the day, but it's kind of like, there's no way that I mean, we would be implementing it for 2 months straight if we went to every grade level and tried to get every kid. It's just not possible. I think on paper that would be a great thing to say, but the realism, it's just not there.
Yeah, usually the rural application is different. And on paper, you feel like it would be applicable and it would work, but yeah, and
it's just not applicable. And then we also do lessons like we go in and talk to students about their classes for next year, graduation requirements, just all those kinds of things. And we count that as guidance because it really is. I mean, we're giving instruction. So, but it's not the same feel as talking about stress management or mental health or, anything like that. So, but we count those under the guidance umbrella.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for your answers.
Yeah.
You could basically answer two of my other questions too in your first question, in your first response. I know it was like a big chunk, but it was very insightful. Ms. Kumba, if you want to ask your questions.
Yeah, so we're going to move on to designing. This isn't really a designing question, or it might be, but how many counselors do you have on your campus?
So we have 7 counselors, including myself. Yeah. And
sorry. How long did it take you to build your program basically from scratch?
Well, I would say it's never really 100% built.
Yeah, right.
But it took, I'd say it took a year to put the basics in place. And I'll say that I didn't get a lot of buy-in, no matter how much I tried from the other counselors. I don't think they saw value in it because they're so busy, right? We're busy doing credit checks and all those important things. And so to be able to be pulled in to talk about goals, they were like, what? Like, I don't have time for this, and I get it because I'm up at 11 o'clock at night trying to figure this stuff out, but it pays off. Now everyone is all about it, but yeah.
Because I have found myself in a similar situation like this. I am a first year counselor, and our other counselor, she has, she got her degree in another state. Well, she's not ever heard about the Texas model. And I was talking to her about it today, and she's just like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, yeah, oh my gosh, like we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, how long is this gonna, could this even take us?
Yeah. I think that that first year, giving myself permission to just put the basics, because I tend to want to do it all and do it well and do it 100%, right? Otherwise, why do it? But it was just not humanly possible to do all that. So I knew that it would grow over time, and it has. But I could read through what does CREST require, and then read through the Texas model book. And so I had ideas about what that needs to look like. And then we just, that first year was tough and we implemented a lot of new things that were difficult, but now it's just part of our program. It's what we do. So I think once you make that leap, and it is a leap, sometimes it feels like a dive off, but once you do that, then, and everyone sees the value of it, then you're golden.
Who helped to design your current comprehensive program? Was it you and just the other counselors, or you and administration?
Basically me and the other counselors. I did invite, we have a dean of instruction who does evaluations for counselors. So I try to invite her to everything. I also, the reason why I really want her there is for advocacy more than anything. She's an administrator, so that world is different, and they don't get, I mean, I'm sure you work at schools too, right? They don't understand what counselors do. And so every time she's a part of those conversations, I feel like that's advocating for what we do. Now she's a completely different person, you know, now that she's been through this whole process. Anyway, I would invite her to all those things. And she had good insight. I would invite, we have a transition coordinator who works in the counseling office. She's not a counselor, but she works with students who are like TSI stuff, and then you know, dual credit enrollment. But she had good insight into things too. A couple other people that I think are really important to invite is your admin assistants. I don't know that a lot of campuses do this, but they are very valuable. They see things in the counseling office a little bit differently than I do, because I'm not sitting out there. But today we had our first data dig, and some of the feedback they gave, I was like, man, if you hadn't been here, I would have never thought of some of the things. Anyway, they're very, very valuable members, and they were very helpful in developing the whole program. So when we got the award, I mean, you only get so many the trophies, so one for each counselor, but I felt horrible because these people were equal parts. I mean, they did as much work as anyone else, but I didn't have anything to give them. So, but I feel like their feedback is just as important, and their help on it was just as important.
Can you tell us why your department chose to apply for a CREST award?
I felt that, I mean, I was a counselor here before I became lead. And I could see, and I knew about CREST. I couldn't implement it at the middle school level because I was also the 504 coordinator, and because I also did testing for the entire campus. There's no way you can do that and do CREST. So I knew coming here, like, we didn't have a lot of non-counseling duties, so it could be done. But I saw the potential, and I knew, like, we're being underutilized. And I'll be honest, a lot of people are acting like they're busy and they're not busy. And because they didn't want more duties. They didn't want to go do things or whatever. But you're not really part of a campus if you're just sitting at your desk, you know? So anyway, I knew the value of it, and I knew that we actually had the potential. We had the time to do it. And so I think that was the beginning of it. And then, so I spent the summer talking it up to admin before I even presented it to counselors, because I knew if I had their buy-in first, then we could do anything, you know? Yeah, so that's how I approached it.
Nice. Well, congratulations, because it sounds like a ton of work.
It was pretty tough. When I got it, when we got it, I'm sorry, excuse me. When we got it, I went home, and to my husband and to my kids, I'm like, this is your award too, because the hours I spent just putting things in place so that I could even present it to counselors later on, you know, that was a ton of work. The background, you know, like, how do you record what your campus plan is? Well, I needed a document for that, and there's not a template out there. So I had to create a template for it. So little things like that they're not in place, but you got to spend time doing. So that was a lot of personal time. I couldn't do it during the day. So I feel like a lot of people, were contributing to us receiving that award, who were not actually a counselor.
Okay, we'll move on to implementing. How often do you assess the needs of your students and then modify your program based on those needs? Is it a yearly assessment? Do you do this once a semester, or do you assess as situations arise?
So currently we assess at the end of every year. And then based on that data, we formulate our goals for the next year, or part of our goals for the next year. We look at other kinds of data too. I think in the more perfect world, we should be doing it twice a year. And I think eventually we probably will. The getting the data out there is not hard. I found ways to get students to actually respond, so that's not hard. What is hard is crunching the data once you have it. That takes a huge amount of time. So I know that if I put another one out there, that I'm going to have to spend time crunching that data too. And so anyway, I'm just trying to find the balance between, I know eventually that's going to happen. I don't know that we're there yet. We've talked about it, but I haven't implemented it yet.
Can you give us an example of a program that you have implemented that was based on a needs assessment?
Well, the stress management, the number one concern that students have told us every year is stress management, or that they're stressed out. I have learned over time how to ask that question better. I didn't think about it at the time. The first time I asked the question, all students are stressed out all the time. And the feedback you get about how stressed out they are depends on whether AP testing is about to happen or whether it's the beginning of the school year. So it doesn't matter how many times I ask it, that data is probably going to be the same. What I should have asked is, how do you cope with it? Do you have coping mechanisms for it? So now we know to, adjust our questions that way. So once we realized that, then we started implementing better lessons, guidance lessons. So last year, I feel like was the best version of that we had. So we went into classrooms and we only took about 20 minutes, right? Because teachers don't want to give up their time, understandable. And talked with students about all the coping mechanisms that they can implement. We actually did one in class together so that they at least had practice doing one. And then we directed them to we had created a virtual calming page on our website. So showed them that. But that was all as a result of the needs assessment. Otherwise that would have never happened.
I don't know if y'all can see this, but I got a notice that we have 9 minutes left.
Oh,
I don't know if y'all
I can see
on your screen. So I'm going to move on to evaluating. How often do you evaluate your program, and what kind of data do you use or assessments do you use to evaluate your program?
Well, technically we're evaluating all the time because anytime we implement something, we always do a plus delta, even if it's just with counselors. But we do one at the end of the year that's more official, where we look at all of our goals and the data that shows us whether or not we met those goals. We do an end of the year teacher survey. We do a climate survey about how they feel towards counselors, and then also what they experience with counselors. So we use that as our evaluative data also.
Once you've evaluated your program and identified an area that needs some fine tuning, how quickly is your counseling team able to make those changes? I mean, is it kind of like an instant, like, let's meet, let's talk about this and let's make this change now? Or is it something that you would wait and change and implement that change in the next school year?
it probably depends on what the change is, but we could implement something tomorrow if we wanted to. We have the freedom to do it because we have the support from admin, and he would probably be fine with whatever we wanted to do. So we could implement it. Bigger things I tend to want to do on a yearly basis. I like to start from the beginning, but it's not always possible. Sometimes we change midstream. So I feel like we could start anything at any time.
My last question I have is, how do you evaluate yourself as a counselor within your program?
Well, CREST was a big, like actually winning that was a big piece of that. I felt like we were successful that way. We also do self-evaluations as a team. Like we do it, privately, and then we come together as a team and talk about, how we feel we did individually. At the beginning of the year, we all set personal goals. For as a counselor, like, what do you want to improve on? And then we talk about those again, at the end of the year. So, we look at the teacher evaluation. I feel like that's part of, how I'm doing as a counselor is how other people perceive me.
I think that's really all the questions I have. Classmates, do you have any extra lingering questions?
I have one, just kind of a personal question for me. With all the experience that you've gotten now, that you've had, if you could go back and give yourself some advice as a first-year counselor, what would you include?
I have a problem with work-life balance.
I'm glad you said that. I do too. I'm glad you said that.
I'll admit it, it's a problem. And but it's something I'm always working on. And so I feel like if I could go back, I would give myself permission to not try to be perfect. Yeah.
That's great advice. Thank you. Yeah. Anything y'all want to add?
It sounds like you was blessed to have the right people in place.
Absolutely.
Administrators, teachers, a lot of our counselors here, they'd like to do the Texas Mall, go towards CREST, but a lot of times it doesn't converge like they would like it to.
Right. Well, one of the best pieces of advice I got was from a Texas School Counseling Association conference that I went to where they talked about CREST. Was they were talking about just take a leap, just do it. And I was like, what does that mean? Just do it. Like what, but now I see they were right. Just do it, just act as if, that's what we do and then go forward, I say that, but I don't know what I would have done because counselors were not buying in at first. If admin was not backing me up, I don't know that we would have been able to progress like we did. But when counselors were balking and saying, oh, we don't have time, blah, 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 then I knew admin could come in and be like, yes, you are going to do this, right? They're going to back up what I say. So, but now that's not contentious at all because now the value is there. And I knew once we went through the process, they would see it, and they did. Now I don't need admin to back me up like they did in that way. But it's definitely a leap of faith, to do, because there's not a perfect, hey, if you do this, this, and this, you get CREST. It's not out there. You follow what that paperwork says, but even then I was still questioning stuff. I'm like, they just want this piece, I guess. And I actually changed my application multiple times because I had written so much, and then I was like, they don't want all that. And so I took out a bunch of it. And then I wound up adding some back in because, I'm just questioning everything. You just don't know. And I think that part was truly a leap, but I think CREST, they want you to get it. And so they try to be as helpful as possible. And, just knowing that they're not out to get you, I think helped me, be positive about it.
Well, congratulations again. And thank you so much for
Thank you.
agreeing to this
Yes,
interview.
thank you very much.
Yeah,
It's
not a problem.
It's been a struggle to find a counselor willing to do this because it is a very, very crazy time.
Yeah, it's very hard. It's very, like today, we did a credit check book swap and then half of us were doing data. But at the end of the day, everyone was like, I'm so glad we did this. I was like, I wish you would have said that yesterday when we were, so yeah, it is a crazy time, but you go back to why you're a counselor to begin with, and you carve out the time to do it because that's what's important,
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again and have a great school year.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you and congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you
Y'all have
very
a great
much.
evening.
Thank you.
Bye.